Josephine Baker was an African-American singer, dancer and civil rights activist who overcame racial and sexual limitations and became world-renowned for her multi-talented and influential work in politics, fashion, media, music and general versatility in the entertainment business. Baker was born into poverty in St. Louis, Missouri in 1906. She had a passion for dancing and first found success in clubs and street performances, which in 1919 led to touring the United States with the Jones Family Band and the Dixie Steppers. In 1925 she moved to Paris and became one of the most popular entertainers in Europe, gaining support from influential figures such as Pablo Picasso and Ernest Hemingway. The success of Baker's performances and exposure they gave her led to her first musical recording in 1926. She went on to record over 130 songs. However, her talents were not always met with admiration. In 1936, Baker returned to America, but was disgusted by the racism she was subject to, so returned to Paris where she married Jean Laune and became a French citizen. During World War II, Baker worked for both the Red Cross and the French Resistance, and was awarded 2 French military honours. Baker went on to marry Joe Bouillon, and with him adopted 12 children, many of which were of different ethnicities, which she named the Rainbow Tribe. Baker also supported the civil rights movement, frequently attending demonstrations, most famously participating in the March on Washington, where she gave a speech alongside other significant civil rights activists such as Martin Luther King Jr. Her role in the anti-racism movement seemed to have impacted the American people. In 1973, she returned again to perform at the New York's Carnegie Hall, where she received a standing ovation. Clearly, cultural and racial growth was evident. Josephine Baker's story shows an African-American woman who, despite at times being subject to racism and sexism, was an icon whose range of talents and views impacted the ever-changing view of the new woman. She is portrayed extremely differently to, for instance, Radcliffe Hall, and celebrates her femininity and her feminine physical attributes, stepping away from the masculine clothing and traits. Her portrayal in photographs, when compared to that of Hall's, proves that femininity is socially and culturally constructed, changing over time. However, sexual differentiation is still produced physically. Baker's most famous costume is seen in her performance in La Folie du Jour, where she danced in a skirt made of 16 bananas. This iconic style has gone on to influence modern artists such as Beyoncé.
Notions of racial discrimination arrived in Paris as an idea, an imagined construct from America. What the French referred to as black culture was in fact African folk art introduced to them as colonial experience. The blackness of Josephine's skin was initially taught to her to mean inferiority, and that lighter skin was more readily accepted by society due to living in Illinois. However, when Josephine arrived in Paris to dance at La Revue Negre in 1925, her body was to become a signifier of the exotic, the sensual and the desirable. Paris almost seemed like an outfit for Josephine. She was representative of American ideas about jazz modernity, to which the French Empire were very receptive. Parisians were tired of civilization, founded on the suppression of instincts, and they brought into the idea that society created neurosis by inhibiting the id, which Baker was able to transgress in such seductive ways. Josephine was exploring the new variations of sexuality within the realm of openness and experimentation. Although at the time this nudity was not unusual within performance, Josephine's magnetic persona was. She avoided merely being an object of sexual desire by entwining it with comedy. Shortly after the Revue Negre closed, Josephine was to create her most remarkable performance, starring in La Folie du Jour at the Folies Bergère Theatre, known to many as the Banana Skirt. Josephine played Fatou, a savage-like character who enters the stage on a tree branch, twisting and twirling around down onto the centre of the stage as if to embody the characteristics of the non-human. Adapting these characteristics of a monkey to the rhythm of savage men's drums, the story tells the white explorers travelling to the edge of civilization to be exposed to the savage and the primitive. The banana skirt was a highly sexual and eroticized costume, with her nude figure fully exposed, accentuated by phallic shapes of bananas forming a skirt around her hips. Notions of otherness and of eroticism were crucial to Josephine's success in this performance. In many ways, the sheer scale of nudity arguably reduced Josephine to a spectacle, a passive performer in the eyes of the male gaze. However, the sensuality of her constant movement defined one method of focus. The fluid lines of movement enabled her to be in control of her own body, comically drawing emphasis to her femininity during her performance when she pleased. Dancing for Josephine united action and objectification, fear and desire within the realm of sexuality, while sending a message of resistance to challenge her audience. Women were bound in society to be the bearer and not maker of meaning, serving as objects of male desire and obsession. But Josephine, through her performance in the banana skirt, was adjusting this notion of being looked at to challenging the notion of looking herself. Her body was a site of such ideologies, allowing her to address and confront notions of gender, race, as both fascinating and threatening. The French were intrigued by this endless possibilities of elusive and the exotic, yet someone being attainable and present. In her career as a performer, Josephine embodied powerful psychological fantasies about difference, both sexual and racial. Josephine represents a new woman, as she was able to escape confinement of patriarchal symbolic social systems and transgress the social constructs whilst effectively retaining notability, respect and praise for her talents. In her own words, "I'm not intimidated by everyone. Everyone is made with 2 arms, 2 legs, a stomach and a head. Just think about that." Still performing at the age of 68, Josephine in 1975 premiered at the Bobino Theatre in Paris, performing a medley of routines that had spanned her 50-year career. Greeted with rave reviews, notable individuals such as Sophia Loren, Princess Grace of Monaco were in attendance to see the veteran dancer. Not shortly after the show premiered, Josephine went into a coma, eventually dying from a cerebral hemorrhage on 12th of April 1975. The streets of Paris were lined with crowds to watch her funeral procession, with the French government honouring her with a 21-gun salute and becoming the first ever American woman buried in France with military honours.